What is up, Internet? The Internet, internet.com/u.html. My name is Scott Heisel. I am the former managing editor of Alternative Press. I am the current guy standing in his wife's office using her standing desk. It's beautiful weather here in Cleveland, Ohio, where I am. I hope it's beautiful wherever you are today. But who cares about that? We're here to talk on April 24th, 2022. More than 20 years since the last stereo album has been written and recorded. We're here to talk about the new stereo album, as well as the past episodes of the Kings of No Hope podcast, which you've all hopefully been consuming like the good little internet denizens that you are. This is a thrill for me to be here. I've been a fan of this band ever since I first heard 300 in 1999, when I was probably, 2 years old, maybe 1.5 years old. I'm trying not to date myself or my gray hair in my beard. But this is really exciting for me to be here and be hanging out with the band for the next hour or so, hanging out with you guys. If you have questions or comments that you want us to see, throw them in the chat, wherever the chat might be on your screen there, or this or that, whatever it is. Let us know what you think about it. Over the course of this next hour, we're going to play some games, we're going to be doing some interviews, and most importantly, we're going to be showing you some never-before-heard clips of brand new stereo songs, which is pretty damn exciting if you ask me, and nobody did, but I said it anyway. So let's get on with the show. You've had enough of me already. It's time to bring in the mastermind behind the Kings of No Hope podcast that you've been consuming. That person is Rory Phillips, the producer and host of Kings of No Hope. Welcome, Rory. Oh, we'll raise the roof. Okay, I got it.
Scott, you got me hyped.
I try my best, man. I chugged a Mountain Dew Zero about 20 minutes ago, and I am feeling it. I am feeling it. So
I love it.
Yeah, free product placement for them. So that's good.
This is so great.
How are you?
I'm fantastic. This feels like a wrap party on like 7 years worth of work, and we haven't even put the record out yet. So this is fantastic.
I know. It's crazy to think about that it's been, however long it's been, right? The record itself has been worked on for quite some time. The podcast as well. You and I first talked over 2 years ago, I believe, maybe it was a year and a half ago for the podcast, right? And I was like, when's this thing going to get done? So clearly we all had some stuff to work through, but we got there. So I've been really, really, really enjoying the podcast. I forgot what I had said, so I'm glad you used some of the good things I said, not like the super, super, super like white supremacist stuff. So thank you. That's good. The whole, whatever.
I had your back.
Thank you. I appreciate that. But I'm curious, what was it that pulled you in to doing this project? I mean, obviously, the stereo is only a portion of your career as a musician. You've been making records for the past almost 30 years at this point, since you were about 1 year old. Congratulations on starting so young. What was it that made you want to revisit this kind of tumultuous time in your life and dive into it?
Yeah, I mean, it started really in 2011. We had a reunion show in New York City where the stereo played, and I came back into the fold for the first time. And so that kind of got the conversation kicked off. And me and Jamie at that point kind of were having initial talks about like, what if we, exchange some songs? It didn't really go anywhere for a little bit. And really the hook that I found for myself was starting to think about the story of the stereo and all the things that they had gone through, all the drama that I had kind of would hear little rumblings about and kind of get. And so once I started talking to Jamie about that stuff, I was like, okay, this is my end. This is the thing that I can do that will really keep me engaged and give me like a whole side project to work on, while Jamie really was doing the lion's share of the recording work and making of the actual record. So like I helped out with songwriting. I sing on it and everything. I'm definitely on the new stereo record. But I did need like sort of a side project. I needed a side hustle to do, since I wasn't going to be quite as involved. And then once I got into doing it, I mean, it just really started becoming a fascinating story of all these things that I had not heard about. Jamie getting asked to not go to Europe with the band as a singer was a particularly mind-blowing moment for me. And so I got to really dive in deep on something that I found really interesting.
Okay. Now, obviously, you are and have been located in Austin, Texas for quite some time now. I have to ask, how many skyscrapers for Google or Facebook have gone up since you started working on this podcast? Because it seems like there's about 30 new ones every week, right?
Yeah, a couple dozen, I think. But I have to say really quickly, I am an Austin person who loves that people come here. That's one of the things that makes Austin the oasis in the middle of Texas that it is that we have people come in and bring outside influences and perspectives and things that really make it amazing. Another part of that is all the condos that are going up, and I know that bums some people out, but overall, I'll still take it on balance.
All right. So what are you doing today to keep Austin weird? That's the question we have to ask.
Just being a weirdo, generally in my life.
Yeah. I will out you. You were wearing a Hawaiian shirt about an hour ago. So I think that counts.
Sure.
I think that counts. So yeah. So, having kind of put this podcast out, kind of, given birth to this project you've been working on for a couple years now, and we said with the record still coming in 3 weeks, what's been the feedback for you? Has it been kind of immediate feedback? I think one of the benefits of now with the internet versus say 20 years ago when you were starting the stereo is that the immediate feedback did not exist as fast and as intense as it can be now. Did you receive an overwhelmingly positive, negative? What's been your kind of reception of the podcast?
I've found that in all of the parts of the stereo stuff we've been doing, it has been amazingly positive in a way that I just never could have even anticipated, especially given some of the reactions the band had kind of gotten in the past. And so being able to step away from that and see something really positive. But for the podcast in particular, some of the most interesting reactions to me were from people who would reach out to me and say, hey, thank you so much for making this podcast. It really helped me work through feelings that I had about the band that I got kicked out of, or, the dynamics that I had with all my friends that started a band in high school. That was like just a really amazing way to connect with folks that I wasn't thinking of at all. The other interesting reaction that I would get when the first sort of couple episodes were coming out would be people reaching out to me saying, oh man, you're really sticking it to Jamie. Good job. Like he's really he really deserves it here. And kind of being like, wait. Like you got to get to the end of this. There's a whole kind of arc here. And by the way, did you know that we're putting out a new record? Because I'm in the band again. Please don't boycott the stereo or do anything bad to the stereo because I am in the stereo.
That's true. We don't want to be the mono. That's not going to go anywhere, right? That's a historically poor connotations. So talking with the idea of, getting all this feedback and digging into all this history of the band and kind of learning all the stories that you may not have been privy to the first time. I know one of the things that I was doing when you first interviewed me was I was going back into the Internet Archives and reading all these stories that maybe I had written, on Punk News or wherever it was to read the comments. And those comments can get really, really, really brutal to everyone involved, by the way. I mean, early internet culture is different than anything else, right? Was it strange, given the passage of time, to go through and maybe read these threads about so-and-so quitting a band or being kicked out or whatever it was, and seeing people taking that hard stance of fuck Rory, no, fuck Jamie, no, blah, 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 right? Like, did that cause any sort of like emotions within you, or were you kind of like, whatever, who cares?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of transported me back to that time because that really, and what was so funny is not a ton of it was really played out in the open until that became, and that the internet piece of it kind of came towards the very end of all of the turmoil and everything going on. So in particular, whenever the band broke up and there was the big post about, BJ kind of taking down the band, like that's where the comment piece of it like really blew up and where I could really kind of see all of it. It felt like a sort of journal entry or a diary entry from some of what I kind of knew was lurking below the surface from talking to people back then. But interesting at that point in particular, I think people really didn't have a sense of like these comments are going to live forever potentially, and it's always going to be here. And so people were really kind of cutting loose, which was interesting.
It's very fascinating to look back at the internet when people didn't think anyone would read it in 10 years time. You know what I mean? Whereas now it's like, we're all a little more careful of what we say, but suffice it to say, you still have a very rabid fan base out there that is very happy to have new music and also to have you back with this very next person I'm going to bring into the room right now. How's that for a segue, internet? Please welcome in, some might call him the Maleficent of the band. No, I'm just kidding. Of course, we're bringing in the brainchild of the stereo for the past 20 years. This is, ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for Jamie Wolford.
Yes, my friend Jamie, everybody.
Oh, that was nice. Thank you. My friend Jamie. I like that.
They all are everybody. Friends. I swear they're friends. So, Jamie, how are you this fine day?
I'm great. I'm so excited to be here. This is obviously, like Rory was saying, this is kind of like the wrap party on a lot of work that we've been doing. And well, really for the podcast, it's just been it's the Rory show. Like I obviously am a kind of a large part of the subject matter of the podcast, but and heard things along the way, but this was definitely a labor of love of Rory's. And, we as a band, we kind of would hear, like a version 1 of the podcast, and we'd be like, wow, you almost forget that the podcast is about your band, and we would kind of lean in and listen as if it were just a story about any band. And it was fascinating to view it this way. And I liked all the the kind of the differences of perspective that different people in the band had over the years about what happened and what didn't happen. And it was enlightening and entertaining at the same time. So,
well, I'm interested to kind of get more of your feedback about that, because I think one of the things that I took away from the podcast the most is that this is the first time in your really musical career for the past, almost 30 years, where you haven't been the person driving it. You're now the subject of something, right? Because you obviously are a part of the podcast, but it's someone else is kind of telling the story about you. Was that difficult for you to kind of wrap your head around to kind of give over that spot?
No, in fact, early on when Rory kind of, I can't even remember the sort of the impetus of how this happened, but like I told Rory, I said, that the band Anvil made this movie called The Story of Anvil or something to that effect. And in my opinion, it was probably one of the best, if not the best documentary about a band. And it isn't this sort of champion hero story of the band that could and vanquished the, whatever it was, right? They showed this basically slow and, steady decline of the band over many years. And they showed everything, getting ripped off by promoters in Europe, which, by the way, I'm pretty sure that same promoter ripped us off. So I'm like, I think I recognize that guy. I actually cried watching that movie, thinking to myself, oh my God, there's so many parallels to our band. So I told Rory, I said, look, I know that I have some kind of a spotty track record with a lot of people, or at least in their memory, about what happened with our band. And there are times where I feel like I was justified in trying to make the decisions I needed to make to help propel what we were trying to do. And other times I think I probably overstepped. But I was in my 20s, and I think there's none of us that would be like, oh, I have a perfect track record in every relationship I've ever had in my life. The only difference is that my sort of issues like this were done in almost like a public forum. Mm-hmm. And so, nobody's like job gets put on display like this would, right? So, but I told Rory, I said, if, the story would be better if you cast me as the villain. I don't care. Cast me as the villain. I'm already the villain to a lot of people anyway, but I don't care. What am I going to do about it now? Win their hearts over? I'm not necessarily concerned about that. The only person I was really concerned about winning their heart over was Rory. So Rory he's a special person in my life, right? And don't get all teary, buddy. But he and I have a chemistry musically that I haven't had with anybody else. There's almost like a shorthand that happens when we work on things together. And when we were younger, we didn't see eye to eye personally, but we're really good friends now. And that plus our sort of musical chemistry, to me, it's almost like a disservice to my own life to not have Rory back in my life and making music with him again. So I look at this whole experience as just like one big, awesome homecoming for us. So
I love that.
Okay.
Thanks, Jamie.
Well, as
you got it, buddy.
I would probably say I'm going to say behind Dave Galea and Jamie's mom, I'm the third biggest fan of the Stereo, as I'm going to say that, right? I didn't get a dance on stage at Terminal 5 for 30 minutes. Shout out to Dave Galea, wherever he is today. I am curious, though, going through the podcast, I learned so much about a band that I thought I knew everything, right?
Sure.
And as you mentioned, a lot of the stuff kind of paints the band in a less than positive light. And also, I think that you were a victim of a time period where the idea of being a careerist, trying to pursue music as a career, not just like as a passion project, was frowned upon. And only a few short years later, that all changed, given, the rise of MySpace and all that kind of stuff, right? What part of the podcast stories, if any of it, made you the most uncomfortable to have to play for, say, your wife and kids or your friends or that kind of stuff? Is there anything that you were kind of concerned about coming out?
I mean, I don't know if there's anything like that I would sort of, I embraced it all. It is what it is. I've had a lot of discussions with my wife about what the podcast is and what it isn't, and how seriously some things were taken at the time and even now versus the severity of what they actually are. And while I wish I could have done things a little bit differently, I also kind of I didn't murder anybody. Like, there was a lot of like, sort of like this dude, right? But I just was trying to get the band to go down the road. You know what I mean? Just trying to make that van move a little bit further. And while every choice I made wasn't perfect, it was all in the effort of trying to just like propel what we were doing. I wasn't trying to line my own pockets. In fact, there were many a tour where I just kind of pushed my money back into the band fund because I was working as a graphic designer for Fuel by Ramen at the time. And I was sort of getting a little bit of a wage from them to cover my life. So if we didn't have a particularly successful, financial tour, I would forfeit my take just to help out the other guys that didn't have that scenario going. So it was never about my pockets. It was always just about the band, right? So, yeah. I mean, but as far as something being like overly worried about to share, no, it is what it is. Sometimes the truth is uncomfortable, but it's just the truth. It's just stories about how to grow and how to get better at being a person.
I'm really glad to hear you say that, Jamie, because I very distinctly remember. No, about not feeling like anything rubs you / your family the wrong way, because I definitely distinctly remember sending you episode 5 and the whole wrap up and kind of the summary of it and my thesis of it. I was definitely bracing for impact because we had talked about all this stuff in theory of like, well, maybe Jamie will sort of be the villain of the story. And it, obviously sort of has this arc, like we're working together now. But even then, like, kind of like stating it out all plainly like that, definitely made me a little cringing and just hoping that everything went okay. And then luckily, Jamie's very gracious and said that he liked it a lot when he finally did it.
Look, you're talking about 25-year-old Jamie versus, wait, how old am I?
27.
Yeah. There's a gulf of difference between who I was and who I am today. And like I can take ownership of things I've done in my life, but at the same time, I'm like, I just was in a band, guys, like, just try to make this work. And Rory's skillful way that he presented everything, like I said before, is like super entertaining, and I loved every bit of it. And I almost listened to it as a fan of just music rather than I forgot I was the person I was listening to at times. It just was this story about what it was like to kind of be in a band and kind of chasing the dream of music. I kind of lost my train of thought there, but like,
I'll say personally, I'm really looking forward to the follow-up podcast series about Rory versus the ska scene for the Impossibles and how he was the villain of the ska scene. So, because he gave up things, right? So,
right.
I've got like an entire In Defense of Ska episode where I go into my ska shame reasoning, and yeah, if you want to deep dive on that part of it, you definitely can.
There should be no shame toward that. So I would say the only two purest forms of art in the world are pro wrestling and ska. So there you go. So
and those cross over more than you would think.
They do indeed. I apologize. I think I had some microphone issues. I'm sorry for that. If that happens again, I'll just slap myself in the head. So before we move on to the remainder of the band, I do want to ask Jamie, given that the Stereo had such this kind of turbulent ride throughout the first 5 years of the band, and a lot of people viewed it as like, Jamie's solo project, how do you see the current iteration of the Stereo? Is this a Jamie Wolford project period, or is it collaborative?
Super collaborative. I mean, obviously Rory kind of owns the space of like this podcast thing, which, I helped a little bit just sort of like with like some of the framing, like he would ask me questions, sometimes just because he needed some clarification about how something happened. I'd be like, well, that's kind of how I saw it this way. And it would help him tell the story a little bit better. And like Rory kind of alluded to earlier, my realm was sort of the production of the album. This all started when Rory asked me to sing background vocals on a demo that he had, a song called Perils of Underestimation, which is on the record. And it got me thinking like, okay, we're sharing music now. We're going to sing. I'm going to sing on his thing. Like we really should start playing together again. This is fantastic. So, Rory would probably laugh when I say this, but he would send me songs like an idea, like, and the thing that I always do is I speed it up and I change the key. Right. That's just like apparently like my recipe for Rory is it's like, okay, wrong key, too slow. Here we go. And then I would like, sort of reconfigure things and send it back to him. He's like, oh yeah, totally. That's the way to do it. Yeah. So there's this really interesting way. Whereas before, back in the day, we would sort of like be sitting in front of each other with guitar and, acoustic guitars or piano or whatever it is and trying to figure out an idea together. Now it's a lot more modern in the sense that he would send me something semi-complete, with some drums on it or whatever. And then I would sort of let my producer imagination go wild and then send it back to him sort of reconstructed in this different light. And then he would have notes back about that. And then we would just, it would get to a point. And a lot of times like Rory will write something kind of sans bridge section of the song. And that's one of my whole moves is I just drop in the bridge. I'll be like, okay, here's your song plus a bridge. We've got a few songs like that on the record where I just sort of take over the middle section, kind of like, Paul McCartney style, and then give it back to John Lennon, right? So not that I'm comparing us.
I'm John Lennon. I'm liking this.
Well, I'm definitely not going to be, I'm Paul, you're John, right?
I thought I was the Maxwell Silverhammer guy that hits the anvil during that.
Yeah. That's both of us, unfortunately.
All right. Well, let's bring in the remainder of the stereo of Mach 3, Mach 4, whatever we're going to label them as. Can we say this is the fifth or seventh and final version of the stereo? Is this it?
Oh, this is it. This version of the stereo has been together longer than the stereo ever was together. So I don't know what you need, what more you need. So
please welcome, put your internet hands together for bassist Chris Serafini and drummer Sam Hardwick. It's a pleasure to have them here.
Yeah.
Hello, everybody. I love the Deep Purple reference there, Scott.
I do what I can.
Yeah.
I do what I can. I try minimally, but I do try. So Sam and Chris, how are you doing today? Talk at the same time, please.
This was about Sam.
We'll start with Chris.
Thank you, Chris.
Yeah, good. So Chris, I'm curious for you as someone who was in the stereo the first time around and has been a part of all the reunions since 2011. How have you seen the band dynamic change in the past, I guess at this point, decade?
I mean, it's awesome and depressing at the same time because it would be awesome if this was happening then. Like these guys, the music.
Thanks, Chris. Really bring us down. That's great.
Thanks. No. I mean, that is meant to be a compliment.
No, I know.
I mean, it's amazing. I love these guys. Best dudes to play with.
We have every time we get together, it's just like my face hurts from all the smiling and the laughing, it's so much better to be in this band than any other band that I've been in. So I if anything, just for the comedy,
Well, so what's strange about this, if you think about it, is that do you consider this version of the stereo to have existed since 2011 or since 2017? Like, where do you kind of draw that line in terms of like reunion shows?
I mean, I would say since the moment we played together as this lineup, we've been together. I mean, the joke is that we're on the slowest tour of all time. It's been like however many years and 6 shows or whatever.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah, it's been less than 1 show a year, right? So
yeah. So maybe we'll work on that. But to me, this is fantastic. I mean, nobody seems to get bummed out about what we're doing, and we're not asking a lot, it's just like we'll see you in a year kind of thing at this point. So but I don't know, I have such a great time. Like every time we get together, I look forward to it.
What I wanted to ask Sam about is that given that you've joined the band in this part of the band where they're obviously a lot slower in terms of live music, right? You're focusing more on recording. Is it challenging for you to kind of assimilate into the band? Because as we all know, most of the chemistry of a band in the early days comes from sitting in a smelly 15-passenger van and, throwing socks at each other, right? So for you, how did you kind of find your place in this group?
Well, I had known Jamie for a number of years. I was in this other band that was sort of this pairing of, I don't know if Soundgarden had a baby with like all of Southern rock, or maybe just Leonard Skinner. That was this band. It was a lot of fun. And Jamie, I had heard about Jamie and actually heard about the stereo because I didn't come up in this ska, this punk scene that the rest had necessarily. And so but when I met Jamie, I was starting to kind of learn about him and the stereo and this whole story about where he had been. And he was just so much fun. He was like an honorary 5th member of the band. And we had done a couple EPs with him and developed a friendship. And so it was 2011 around the FBR reunion time that I was asked eventually to play, and was honored, was thrilled, because Jamie and Chris, for that matter, had already become friends. And so it felt right. It felt, natural.
We didn't actually tell Sam what he was doing. We told Sam, can I tell the story? We told Sam that we wanted to just like audition him to play in like kind of like my solo band, but we knew that we just wanted to go like kind of like sit in a room with him real quick and play some stereo songs and see what a couple of stereo songs would sound like under Sam's hands. And if it sounded great, I think the joke was that if one of us says the dolphin is in the jacuzzi, that meant that we wanted to ask Sam to come to New York with us and play this big concert. And so Sam learned a couple of stereo songs, and just thinking, he's like, I'm just going to go jam with these dudes. No big deal. Probably come home tonight, whatever. Maybe it's something down the road. We played like 2 songs with Sam, and the whole time just thinking, oh my God, I can't wait to say the dolphin is in the jacuzzi. And then as soon as we were done with the second song, I think we both said it. And then Sam's just looking at us. We're like, okay, Sam. So anyway, we've been messing with you. Do you want to come to New York with us and play this like big show? Like, our band is reunited. Do you want to be the drummer for that? And he's like, okay, yeah, sure. That sounds great. and then from there it was kind of history. So.
Okay. So I think it's fitting that given that this band's genesis was being apart from each other, you had one member in Austin, one member in Minneapolis, right? And here we are 23 years later, and everyone on this call is still scattered across the country. And so actually, Kevin Kate threw out a fun question, said, where are all the members of the Stereo now? I think he means like emotionally, but we can go with like physically first. So like, where are you geographically? Where is everyone right now? Rory, you're still in Austin, right?
I'm technically in Georgetown, Texas. So I live in the suburbs of Austin, but yeah, I'm still in Central Texas.
So you want to be stereotyped and you want to be classified. Just want to make sure that's what we're going with. Okay, cool.
Exactly.
Thank you very much. I'll see you guys next time. And Jamie, you are still holding it down in Tempe, correct?
I'm in Phoenix. I'm kind of southeast of Tempe right now. So.
Okay. All right. And you've been there pretty much since 2003. Is that right? 2002?
Yeah. No, I met my wife and I ended up moving to Denver for several years, and then we moved down here several years after that. So, but yeah, we've been living here in sort of South Phoenix on the other side of the South Mountain. If you're from the Phoenix area, where where all the aliens are in Phoenix. If you follow that. Literally right above my head is where that stuff happens. So and I'm not joking. We see those lights that everybody claims are aliens almost every other day. It's just planes. They're just coming into Sky Harbor. It's just planes, guys. No,
that's what he wants you guys to believe. He wants you to believe that.
Right.
That's what he would say. It's just him with a laser pointer down there, just shining a laser pointer in the sky to mess with everybody.
Visual tricks. Compliments of Wolford.
Now, Chris, I believe you are a Yinzer, as spoken by the Pirates at. So are you currently holding it down in Pittsburgh?
Yes, indeed. Yeah, I moved back 2015. I was in Tempe, Phoenix with Jamie.
Very cool.
Yeah, this is my hometown. I grew up here, so this was the right move.
So as we discussed off the air, what is it about Pittsburgh and Fueled by Ramen bass players that name Chris no matter? Like, are there other ones that we don't know about yet coming up? Fueled by Ramen Chris bass players?
Maybe. I don't know.
Well, I guess. Well, here's the thing: if we can get Anti-Flag signed to Fueled by Ramen, that's 3 for one city.
That's true.
So that's a trend, baby. That's a trend.
Okay.
Or can we do like a super group?
Yeah, just Chris
all
bassists.
bass players.
Yeah, just Chris bassists. I would go see that show. Just the bass gods. There you go. Why not?
Sick.
And Sam, where are you located?
I am also among the aliens in Jamie. In Phoenix. Yeah. Yeah.
He has you like in the basement downstairs, just locked up.
Yeah.
So
hey, wherever I could be hidden. That's where you'll find me or not find me.
Okay. Oh, all right. Well, so let's talk about this. So then in 2011, when we started putting the first reunion show together, right? You were still kind of scattered all over. A couple of you were in Phoenix. One of you was in Austin. When did you officially decide to say, let's get together and make a record? And how did that conversation go? Like, at what point in the past 10 years did that happen?
I don't know. Probably like
Jamie, you called me. I was at work.
Yeah.
I remember you called me and like just randomly, hey, you want to make a record? Like it was out of the blue. Completely out. I was like,
it won't take that long. We'll probably get it done in like 2-3 months.
Yeah. Something probably happened like that. Yeah. No biggie, right? I mean, I got a studio here. This is just knock it out, right? Yeah, that was probably said. Something as ridiculous
something like
in
that.
hindsight was said like that. This had to have been about 7 years ago, right?
Yeah.
And Rory and I, had, like I said, we had kind of started the demo trade, which almost turned into like a competition, which I lost. I was losing heavily at first because Rory's like, he's got this one song. He's like, well, I got some other songs too. And then he sends me like 10. And I'm like, oh, okay, I've got one and you've got 10. I better get my act together. And so I had to put the pedal to the metal, and it was hard to do just the way that life was. But eventually we got up to over 30 songs that we demoed for this record. And the joke is that we have 2 more ready to go pretty much. But we got to about 30 songs, in which we whittled it down to the songs you have now. And then, the pandemic and everything kind of threw everything out of whack as far as like getting to the point of releasing this stuff. Mm-hmm. And then also just like not exactly, like you said, it's been a while since we've released a record, and the music world has changed a lot in that time. So we weren't exactly sure how to go about putting a record out that made sense. We flirted with a few labels, kind of doing it the old school way. And we eventually just landed on doing it the way we did it, which is throwing it out ourselves via Kickstarter and, in combination with the podcast. The podcast is almost kind of like our label. It's like the marketing tip of the spear. And our album, I almost view as like a soundtrack to the podcast, rather than our podcast is this addendum to our album, right? Which I think would be more traditional kind of thinking. So, yeah.
I think what's interesting about talking about the Kickstarter, which obviously was wildly successful. I pledged in the first 20 minutes. I was part of that first drive to push you guys over.
Thank you.
I think a lot of people look at Kickstarters like, oh, they're just like a glorified pre-order. The band's already done, blah, 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 whatever it is. And I think there's no better example of that not being true than yours, because you don't have the vinyl ready, and it won't be ready till like 2023 because of the way everything's backed up, right? So I think that's really cool to see. Like, did you expect the response you got as quickly as it was? I mean, did you kind of think you were going to hit that first goal at all? Like, who was the pessimist in the band?
Jamie was the pessimist in the band. I want to call him out because I was the one really pushing for crowdfunding, because we had done it with the Impossibles. The last 7-inch that we had done, we had done a crowdfunding for it, and it had gone really well. And so I knew that feeling of sort of like directly engaging with the people who really love the music, and then having that be part of getting it all put out. So I was sold on that idea from the start, but Jamie was kind of worried, and I don't blame him. The history of the stereo, there's a level of vitriol out there that can kind of exist that could have surfaced here, and also maybe just apathy. So Jamie was really concerned that we would not be able to raise enough money through crowdfunding.
$1,500. I thought we'd make $1,500.
We
in a month.
We were real worried about like even being able to just hit enough to be able to get the vinyl made at all. And so couldn't be happier that he was incorrect about that. And I think Jamie is probably very happy too.
Was that Jamie's mom that just popped on the screen? Is that Jamie's mom?
Yes.
Love it. Your son has not peaked yet, just for the record. And since we're talking about 13, I think it's time that we segue in to the first audio clip of the podcast live cast, video cast, whatever you want to call it.
Streamcast.
I'm really excited to talk about this song. This is the title track on 13. Let's play it, and then I'll give you my thoughts on it, because my thoughts are what matter the most, I think. So, yeah. Go ahead.
Let's do it.
Go! If you wanna go, I don't need you.
right, so let's talk about 13, the song. There's a couple things I love about this right off the bat. Number one, as a music nerd, it's in 13/4 time, which is just chef's kiss, right? What came first, the song title? Oh, bloody murder. What came first, the song title, the lyrics, or the time signature? Like how did the idea kind of come about?
The time signature and the riff. So I like came up with that guitar riff first in like 2005. And at the time I was doing a lot of writing and stuff. I was working with Dan Keyes, had a solo project called Young Love. And so I came up with this 13/4 guitar time signature. And I always kind of like odd time signatures. I think there's sort of a built-in hookiness if you can make it both sound, good and in a weird time signature. And so I wrote that, and we tried it as a Young Love thing, but Dan wanted to turn it into a 4/4 song. So like, modifying the riff to be in 4/4, and just instantly lost the magic. So I wasn't really looking to do anything with it in that direction. And so it just kind of sat on a shelf for a long time. Came back to it in like 2015 when, right before me and Jamie started exchanging demos and stuff. And that was the point where I said, okay, the song is in 13/4. I'm going to embrace that as the sort of theme of the song and bringing it all together. And what I really love now is that we've taken a 13/4 song and then the sort of like concept of like 13 being unlucky being that song title, and now brought it to being the album title for a band that has, consistently seen hard luck. A band that also had their first record called 300.
You're stealing all my points, man.
Sorry, Scott.
No, that's okay.
So yeah, go ahead.
Well, so that's what I was going to get to, is that I think it's such a beautiful kind of bit of symmetry that the first time we hear Rory's vocals on a stereo record is on the song 300, which is about a perfect game of bowling. And the number 300 represents perfection when it comes to that sport, right? And then we fast forward X amount of years, and the first time we hear your voice on the new stereo record is a song about Unlucky 13, right? And it's interesting to me to think about how the bar was set so high based on the inference of what 300 kind of represents and means, right? And then now it's like, no, it's just 13. The album's 13. The song's 13. There's 13 tracks on the album. Like, are we all going to get 13 tattooed on our wrists? Is that what's happening now? Like, I think it's such a, like, did you purposely kind of want to have that symmetry between the two records for you, Rory?
Yeah, I really did, because as it started to form out, it started to feel like a spiritual sequel. Like there was really, like you said, a symmetry between the first record and the one that was coming out here. And now, in the beginning, we were calling out how perfect everything was, and things kind of went sideways. Now we're setting the bar so low with saying that we're unlucky. Now, if the vinyl plant, catches fire while they're pressing a record, it'll be like, well, yeah, of course, it's the stereo. Like, that's how it goes.
Oh, there it is. Look at that. Look at that 13. Beautiful. The problem is you got people who got that pretty fleck for a white guy Osprey tattoo where he asked for a 13, but they drew a 31. So I guess I'll be here all week. I did, something that we've talked about a little bit, and I want to get into is, with the idea of hindsight being 20/20. This kind of comes from our chat. Is there anything that anyone would have done differently with the first few albums in terms of reaching a wider audience? As Spizzy Spose says right here, it never made sense how you weren't gigantic. And I'm sure that some of you at various points felt the same way. So what would you have liked to have done differently, if anything?
Oh, man. I mean, I don't even truly know. It's probably going to sound
not
crazy.
Kick me out, Jamie. I think you're searching for "Don't Kick Rory Out." I think that's it.
I was going to say that second. I'm just kidding. I don't know, maybe, obviously, Rory. No, but I think had we, I don't know. I honestly, I get that sentiment, and I hear questions kind of like that a lot, right? Whether or not they kind of directed it, like, what could we have done sort of maybe artistically different? I don't know if we could have done anything differently artistically different. We certainly could have done things different within the sort of the organization of the band. But I don't know. Your life's journey is your life's journey, and there's only so much looking back and sort of regretting, or even looking back with a fondness for, your successes that is fruitful, right? How fruitful can it be to be looking backwards? It's better to look forward and just keep going. I mean, I'm already thinking, down the road about, well, what is our band, once we kind of get this album out, what are we going to do after that? So why rest on your laurels and just like sort of soak up the now when you can be thinking about tomorrow?
Mm-hmm. And I think that, that was a central question of the podcast too, was the sort of like what happened, like why did the stereo not blow up? I don't think there's ever any real like satisfying answer to that was going to be able to just say like, oh yes, of course. Like this was the one decision point that should have gone the other direction and would have set them down a completely different road. I mean, it just seemed like the main thing that kept coming up in all of the conversations I would have was the timing thing. And you can't control timing. There was no way for the stereo to sort of like become the next generation band instead of the previous generation influence band while they were doing it.
I think there's a sentiment too about like hindsight that is always sort of improperly calibrated when you're looking back at something like you knew, like you had everything right then there, and you could make these decisions that would make sense to someone in the future looking at it. You'd never have that. You're always going, I didn't write the song this way because any other reason than in that moment I thought that was the cool chord and this was the great lyric and whatever, right? Hindsight is, like they say, is 2020, but in the moment, the present is also 2020, but it's just like you're just given what you've got and you just make do with what it is in that moment, and you do it and you go.
Okay. Sam and Chris, do you have any thoughts about that?
Full frontal nudity. We can brought that.
Would that have helped or?
Red Hot Chili Peppers. Just saying.
Didn't try it.
You can sell socks at the merch table. It's great. Yeah, man.
Left it on the table. Could have gone there.
Oh boy.
All right, so I have a submitted question that I wanted to throw at you guys. This is a question that's near to my heart. You kind of mentioned it earlier with the vinyl pressing plant. Gary K wants to know any talk of re-releasing, or in some cases just releasing, the old stereo records on vinyl.
I think Chris and Rory should argue this out because I have no clue.
We've tried a number of different times, and also with my band The Impossible. So being on Fueled by Ramen was an honor and a privilege, and I'm so glad that we were. And so many things are taken care of for us now that Fueled by Ramen has been purchased by Warner Brothers. Like, I don't have to worry about my music being on streaming services and stuff. Like, it just is, and that's great, and it makes me very happy. One of the challenges of that is if we want to repress vinyl, we have to do that in cooperation with Warner Brothers Records, who are a major label. The setup that they have for repressing vinyl stuff is that you essentially have to press a lot of records. And we have some very dedicated fans who I love very much and would love to get in their hands a vinyl copy of something that doesn't already exist. But in order to do that, there's just no way to really make it financially feasible. Both Jamie and I have had a number of folks come to us saying like, hey, I'd love to re-release this. And we're like, great. Check out, go talk to Warner Brothers. And if we can do this, let's do it 100%. And that's when the line goes dead.
Yeah.
And no one calls back because they talk to Warner Brothers. They find out that they have to press 10,000 copies or whatever it is.
All right. So if there are any crypto bros out there watching or listening, it's time to put those weird bathing ape, whatever that stuff is. I don't know. Just put it to good use. Let's get some vinyl out in the world. Let's use up some more, what do you call that stuff? Petroleum. That's the word I was looking for. Not plutonium. There you go. All right. Let's go to another new song off 13, which we actually haven't, no one's heard this yet. Although I have, because I'm very special and very important. I'm verified on Twitter, by the record. But this is one of the coolest songs on the record. I'm really thrilled about this one, that we're going to kind of show this one to the audience right now. This song is called Perils of Underestimation, and you're going to hear two different voices in this song. Take it away.
I promise all of my devotion to never measure by what they expect. I'll be proud as you fail and humble in your success. And if you're left in disarray, I'll pick the pieces up and put you together again. Carry on, my son, build upon what you began, and make a path of your passion. Carry on, my girl, and teach your lesson
Love it. I think the coolest thing about that song is something I've always felt over the years is that the stereo is very deliberate with word choices, right? And we heard in that clip, Rory uses the word devotion, which anyone who listens to stereo knows devotion, right? And I think that's a really nice way to kind of like throw back, whether you knew you were doing it or not, it's part of like the lore of the stereo, right? And then to have Jamie come in on top of that for the pre-chorus and the chorus, it just feels like this kind of meshed together thing we haven't had in so long. For the two of you, you mentioned this is one of Rory's earliest demos that he showed to you. How did it kind of come together in terms of writing this song, and how are you able to kind of keep your songwriting lyricism, like the meaning behind it, kind of connect? Did you have to have those conversations, or was it more kind of natural?
Yeah, I mean, this song was one of the more complete demos that I sent Jamie, and so a lot of the sort of lyrical stuff there. You mentioned the devotion reference. It's funny because I'll find that as me and Jamie are kind of comparing songs, we'll find some things that are in conversation with each other where it was not intentional in any way. The like seek and find truth or dare thing is another sort of like connection that happens later in the record. But for me, that song was really personal to me around the birth of my son and raising a child. I think a lot of people have that experience, and it changes so many things for you. And so like wanting to kind of marry that to the musical piece of it. And then when it came to the sort of thing that you're talking about, the dynamic of having like multiple voices in it, I'm such a huge fan of Jamie's singing. I think he's a phenomenal singer. And so it's great to sort of be able to maybe have something that's pretty close to being fully baked, but then be able to take it and say, okay, yeah, this is pretty done, but this section of it, this chorus would sound enormous if you could take it on and if you could be a part of it. And Jamie obviously has that same sort of like connection to the subject matter. So I think it just really made it easy for us to be able to collaborate on it and make it more than the sum of its parts.
Yeah, I agree. And the serendipity of it all where, carry on my son, carry on my girl, like we wrote this before I had my daughter. And I can't tell you how, my son Jamie has like really taken to this as well, because I remember listening to this in the car with him, and he would ask me like, what is this about? It's like, well, really, it's a song about, Rory and I talking to our kids. And he's like, okay. And then like a little bit, later, the next chorus comes back and he's like, I look over and he's like, he's like crying. And I'm like, it was the most touching moment that I've ever had with any song. And like, although I didn't write it, I'm so glad that I got to sing on it and sort of put me into it so that I could share it with my family in the same way and with the same sort of deliberate intention that Rory had writing it. I took a little bit of ownership out of it for myself, and it's an extraordinarily special song for me as well. And so thank you, Rory, for writing it.
That's probably one of the first times for you, Jamie, in many, many years where you are singing somebody else's lyrics, right?
I mean, no, because on 300, a lot of it wasn't always like I write the song, I sing the song kind of thing. We definitely have some crossover there. I think so, right? I can't quite perfectly remember.
Yeah, for sure.
It's a while back. But I love the idea of thinking of myself more as like an instrument of the record, an instrument of the studio, than having some sort of personal agenda or me trying to be an artist or anything like that. Like if I need a Rhodes piano on this song, I'm going to put this Rhodes piano on the song. If I need my vocal on this song, I'm going to put this vocal on the, whatever. Like to me, it's just another component, in the toolbox. And I did really think of this new record like that. Like I would never was trying to be so precious or sort of like artistically single-minded, other than just trying to make something great for us four guys.
Sure.
And, they gave me a tremendous amount of freedom to do that, make all these artistic choices, and then gave me encouragement and feedback, maybe in a negative way when they didn't like something. Like I remember on this song in particular, I kept sending the chorus over and over to Rory about like trying to get the harmony the way that he wanted to hear it. And then at one point going like, well, that's the way I sent it to you initially. He's like, oh, Okay, yeah, never mind. It's great. You know what I mean? But we were collaborative on this, and I wanted to, I definitely had to make Rory happy, especially with songs of his,
Sure, absolutely. Well, you mentioned a little bit ago, you mentioned serendipity. Just to clarify, Chris's last name is Serafini, not serendipity. It's a common mistake. So, but you learn your names, all right? It happens, right? But speaking of songs about people, I do want to throw back. This is something that I know I had fun with talking to Rory about a long time ago, and Jamie, you remember this story as well. The Ramona Pomona story. I will set it up as such. So you had a wonderful song on your first album called Ramona, one of my favorites on that record. And I'll let you take it from there. So do you want to tell the masses the story?
Yeah. Okay. So we went to, we put this record out called 300, and all throughout kind of the beginning of it and then during its release and everything, we would get these interesting sort of people coming at us from record labels and management, whatnot. And, it was an indication that things were heading in the right direction. We eventually decided to take a meeting with this person at Interscope Records, and we went down to the office and met with the guy. Kind of sat there in his office, and he was just kind of doing his record label A&R guy thing on us. And again, this was probably our first time at a major label, sitting in the office, collecting all the freebie promo CDs, doing that whole thing. And there was this moment that where it was like this heightened level of like excitement and like anxiety and just nervousness. We're like, oh my God, this is the big time record label. We're talking to a guy that could, whatever, where in typical stereo fashion, where it just fizzled in like a second. And he goes, you guys are so great. You're like one of those lifestyle bands. I love those lifestyle bands. And I just remember going, I don't know what the hell that means. Okay, fine. And he's like, and I've been listening to your record like the whole week long. I can't get enough of this. And like that song, I love that song, Pomona. It is so good. It's like, Pomona. And I'm thinking he's talking about Pomona, California. He doesn't know the song's called Ramona. And then the best part happens. He's like, let's tell you, what are some of my other songs that I love on this thing? Where's the CD? Where did I put that? Oh, here it is. He picks it up and he starts to take off the shrink wrap. And I'm like, this dude hasn't listened to the record not even a single time, because he's just opening it for the first time in front of us like a moron. And I probably shared a look with Rory. I was like, okay, this isn't happening. But yeah, he called the song Pomona, and then he opened the record in front of us for the first time.
So for all that think that like being on a major label is like that's the be all end all, no, that doesn't always work out. Sometimes the signs are there. So let's move on. I feel like I'm keeping you guys forever. Let's get back to some new music. There's another new track that we haven't gotten to hear yet. It hasn't made it out to the world yet. This is the first debut of it. This song is another kind of left field song on the record. It's called Do You, Don't You.
To love someone like you, it's on him, never me. In a social study of obsessed, unimpressive second strings. Some boys had all the luck. Some guys get to love someone like you, and it's one thing to never win. I just wish I had something to lose. There's something wrong inside my head. I don't remember what you said. I think I lost my mind. But now it's been 1,000 times. Don't leave me hanging. Please don't say goodbye.
Oh, you cut out before the gang vocal part. Oh, come on.
Leave them wanting more, Scott.
That's true. It's true. I always leave them on the eye. That's true. So talk about this song, the idea that it's once again a double lead song for both of you, both kind of contributing your own parts. Did you write these parts separately and then say, hey, this kind of works together? Did Rory tee it up and say, Jamie, I need a bridge here? And he said, I got it. I'm going to do my best Billy Joel impression, right? Like, where did it kind of come from? And also with Chris and Sam, how did you feel having to just kind of shift the groove of the song halfway through? Like, boom, now we're into a totally different groove.
Well, Rory, do you want to talk about, so this song probably went through some of the biggest facelifts of like anything on the record, right?
Yeah, this one changed a lot from the original demo, and that little bit of a bridge that we got to hear did not exist before Jamie got a hold of it. And this is a prime example of Jamie being able to take a really sort of simple structure that I created and then add in that piece that just, for me, elevates it to this whole other level. It's got this like Cherokee people like break thing.
That's exactly where I got that from. And this is one of our, we do that sort of referential thing. You know, we do it all the time in the stereo where we kind of make reference to a figure from another song. Like 1994 has the riff from Rebel Rebel by David Bowie in there. There's a David Bowie reference in this song. There's a Rod Stewart reference in this song. And then there's the Paul Revere and the Raiders, Cherokee People reference in this song. We do that stuff a lot. And this is probably like the ultimate form of it as far as our band goes, right?
I wrote a song about asking a girl to go to a middle school dance and her really not wanting to say yes, but like kind of half saying yes to me because she felt bad. And then, like I said, Jamie just found this piece to bring into it that really, to me, still has that cohesiveness and helps tell the story, but while taking it in this like completely different direction that I really love.
Okay. So Sam and Chris, how about you for being the rhythm section? This song kind of had a lot of curveballs thrown at you. How did you handle that?
I mean, there was no curveball for me. Like Jamie and Rory would be recording these things and firing them to me. So I got to hear like the back and forth and it was awesome. I had like nothing to say. I'm like, this is all great. Like whatever you guys are doing, keep doing it. So it was like, there was nothing like shocking happening to me. It was all just like very pleasing. Like
I remember the sentiment. The sentiment was like, you guys need to stop writing songs and we need to make this thing already.
Oh yeah. Well, I'm telling you, there was a period where like 4 songs would come at me like every other day. I felt like holy shit. and like I've never been in a band where we had to whittle down 13 songs from, was it 42 or something?
There's a lot. Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy. So, I mean, it was all nice for me. I wish we could have been all like together at the same time doing these things, but as close to being together as we could.
Probably wouldn't get anything done though.
That's a good
Really
point.
think about it, probably just be like, just giggling.
Just be joking. Yeah, we'd just be giggling the whole damn time.
I will say that Jamie and I spent many hours in his studio, in his practice studio, just specifically focusing on the drums. That as a drummer is like a dream, right? Like to have somebody who's also a drummer and working through these parts. And because especially at this stage of it, for me personally, it's about that piece of it that I love the most, is just getting in a room. Like you're saying, Chris, if we could all do this together more, I mean, that'd be a fantasy, because just having Jamie and I going over those parts and staying in their hour, working through and getting to a place where everyone's happy with it. That's super exciting.
We did a lot.
It's very rewarding.
We did a lot of pre-production for Sam, mostly because we didn't want the time in the studio to be spent working on getting a part played properly. Not that Sam's ever been like that, but we only wanted the time in the studio to be spent figuring out how to make the drums sound their best. And so we were like, let's just literally work out all the sort of performance questions in a room that doesn't cost, like $1 million a minute. And then it's that way we can ask every question. We can turn over every stone and just make this, and you can't do that with every drummer. Like I'm telling you, like we say it in the podcast, and I'm going to say it again here. Sam is the greatest drummer in the world, right? And he has unlocked a level of musicianship for this band that we never had access to before. So yeah, it's a lot of work for Sam to kind of like go through this pre-production process. Hey, don't be so good and you won't have to worry about this, Sam. This is your fault.
It's on you, yeah.
So the drum fill in Long Time, like that whole thing, that would have never been available to us before. And which, by the way, that was completely Sam. He's like, I want to do something crazy right here. And we didn't actually have that idea in there until the 11th hour, because Sam came in with this idea for a drum fill that I couldn't even understand for like a week. It just sounded like he was falling down the stairs with his drums in time. And I'm like, did you bring out extra sticks when you played that? How is this even possible? And like, there it is. And it's just like going like, and I'm like, well, how are we going to play on top of that? I can't even understand it. But then eventually figured it out. I'm like, oh my God, the guy is a genius. So thank you, Sam,
is phenomenal.
For being so rad.
Sam is phenomenal, and the real secret for how did the stereo end up coming back together and making a record. It's really Sam is the glue that has made this whole thing happen.
Well, that's awesome, and I think it's also it's before we get to our next part of our live cast here. I think it's also worth maybe asking everyone, what's your favorite part or favorite song to play in the stereo right now, whether it be old or new, because of your specific instrument? That's what Sarah wants to know.
Ooh.
Good question.
I can tell you what my least favorite song is right now.
That's what comes to mind for me too. Is like, what's the thing that I struggle and I'm like staring at my left hand the whole time when I'm trying to like sing it at the same time?
I think Long Time is probably the thing that's like most difficult right now because of the vocals and the complexity of the guitar part.
Yeah.
It's sort of like I've been practicing it now for a while, and every time I kind of stop, I go, well, I better get that at some point, because this is definitely not like been uploaded to the hands quite yet. Because there are some songs where I don't even know. I couldn't tell you how to play it. I couldn't tell you what the lyrics are. But if I pick up the guitar and you ask me to play it, there's both, right? It's just it's in the hands. I don't, I couldn't write down the lyrics to Devotion. Couldn't write down the lyrics to Pay No Attention, but I could play it in a second, no problem. I'm not at that. I don't think any of us are at that level of familiarity yet with the rest of the songs, or the new songs rather. But you get that just by going and playing shows, and then once it's in. It almost never goes away. You have to kind of try hard to forget.
My favorite is right now is definitely 13, just because the band has been gracious enough to let me not have to play that crazy 13/4 riff that I wrote in 2005. And so Jamie plays that, and I just get to scream my head off and play like the big chorus chords.
Okay. How about you, Sam? What about you?
Man, I do like playing 13. Luckily, I get to play a 4/4 over a 13.
I just got done telling everybody how great of a drummer you are, and you just admitted you can't count.
Right. Listen, I go to 4, and then that's where I cut it off. So give me the.
Nobody said there'd be 5. Nobody. That's why we only got 4 guys in the band, because I can't count that to the 5th member, so we keep it at 4.
We all have our strengths, our weaknesses, and I have to say, I mean, the most challenging one is certainly Long Time. I really want to play that one live, because I think I'm gonna just be hanging on the whole time, and that's thrilling.
That's a good way to be.
Yeah, I think so.
Chris, how about you?
I like Truth or Dare. That was really fun for me to play. They're all fun to play, but
yeah. Well, in theory, right? They haven't really been played out a whole lot, right? So we'll see. After the world tour is done by 2075, we'll see which ones are really fun.
That's right.
All right. Well, it seems like we've been having a lot of fun today. We've been having a lot of fun, but it's time to really put the 4 of you to the test. It's time to play, drum roll please, How Well Do You Know Your Bandmate? I feel like I need one of those Bob Barker microphones right now, like the long one, right?
Yes,
I was not prepared for this, I know. But here are the rules, right? We're breaking into 2 teams. We're going to do Team Rory and Jamie, the wonderkins of the band. Then we're going to go to the actual workhorses, the rhythm section, Team Sam and Chris, right? We all know who really drives the band. Yeah, as a fellow drummer, I can relate. So here's what's going to work. I'm going to ask you a question, kind of newlywed game style. All right. One member of the team, as I ask you to, will write down your answer, and then the other member of the team will have to think about what the answer might be and then answer it verbally. Right? Does that make sense to everybody? Nod your head and smile. Yeah, there we go. We can do this. All right. So to keep it moving, I'm going to be asking one question to one team. And then once I ask that, I'll ask the question to the next team as well. So we have kind of 2 going at once. All right. So let's start with question number 1. This is for Jamie to be guessing. Rory, you'll be writing this one down. After the show, you'll find my bandmate tending to his blank. One more time. After the show, you'll find my bandmate tending to his blank. And as he thinks about that, let's move on to Chris and Sam. So Sam, you'll be guessing this. Chris, you'll be writing this down, okay? When I share a motel room with my bandmate, he leaves his blank all over the place. All right. After the show, you'll find me a bandmate tending to his blank. And then for Chris and Sam, when I share a motel room with my bandmate, he leaves his blank all over the place. So I'll give everyone a second to think about that, contemplate. By the way, I don't think we have any prizes for this, so you're just playing for bragging rights, really. Or is there a prize? I don't know. So
Whoever
I can offer you
loses is
this
fired.
There you go. I do have a lovely half-used Rebel scented candle. So if that I can mail it to you.
Another
smells
Bowie
nice.
reference.
There you go.
Yeah.
There
One
you go.
more makes a trend.
All right. So time to reveal answer number 1. So Jamie, what do you think Rory said?
I would say emotional scars.
Rory, could you reveal your answer?
Jamie, I thought we were on the same page, man. It's your golden voice, dude. You're tending.
Oh wait,
that.
I think I did this wrong. I thought it was like that question was about. Okay, so I'm supposed to say what I. Okay,
Yes.
I
there we
did it
go. That's
wrong.
okay.
I did it wrong. Damn it!
You have emotional scars too.
You
It's
think I
okay.
have emotional
Over.
scars?
I don't know. I don't know how this shit works.
I am a
was
little
trying to be-
emotionally scarred. It's true.
Oh, well, okay, all right.
All the best ones are.
So I'm supposed to guess what, or I'm supposed to. I thought it was guessing what you would write about
I
me
believe
or
it's-
about you.
I
It's
don't know.
guessing what
Just roll with it,
what
dude.
the person writing down would say about you, I believe.
Yes, that is correct.
Yes. So
Got it.
you're guessing
Okay.
what he says about you.
okay.
So.
This sounds
Yes.
an awful lot like mathematics, and nobody told me there'd be any. And apparently, Sam guaranteed it wouldn't go above 4. So
This is
Nope.
statistics.
Well, there's- so I have no
All right.
excuses. There's 4 of us.
Yeah.
All right, so Sam, you have to guess now. When I share a motel room with my bandmate, he leaves this blank all over the place. What do you think Chris said about you?
And I have to show this to the camera.
Yes, please, if you would. Well,
you're
I mean,
supposed- you're
I
supposed
would,
to
I would
say
say.
You just
Right.
say it. Chris wrote something down,
Yeah.
hopefully.
Chris
I'm
writes
gonna
something
say,
down.
I'm gonna say. I'll say. Like toiletries.
Toiletries.
let's repeat what you said, Chris. All right. Survey
no way.
says
Tears.
Oh my god!
It starts with T.
Okay, all right. So after one round, we're tied. We're tied for first.
Being
By the
in
way,
this
my
band
favorite
is
part
brutal.
my favorite part about
right.
that question, Sam and I have never stayed in the same hotel room together.
Well, wait, we have.
Yes,
Well,
you
hold on.
have.
We have.
100% you
No,
have.
yeah, you
On
totally
our-
have. You totally
on
have
our-
because Sam outed you about your snoring and you called you fucking Grendel.
It's worse than. It's worse than me. Hey,
Which I can verify. I can vouch for that. You sound like a goddamn monster.
it was bad.
It's like, what is happening in the rest of the room? Is that Serafini or?
Chris, we watched Chucky one night after.
Oh, that's right.
I can't believe you don't. I'm hurt.
Oh no,
I'm
that's
hurt by
right. That's
this.
right.
Whoa. Hey, Scott, you got like a
It's
like.
Grendel. It's Grendel.
We're gonna move on to the next. Like it's your mic is going crazy.
This is
Round 2 of value. My band. Yeah. Sorry.
That Grendel came out.
a really good record.
Oh no.
All right, I should be back. Is that good now?
Yes.
Now?
Yes.
Okay.
We got you back.
For the record, maybe you have a tracheotomy. None of your business. All right.
Yeah. So easy.
Okay. Round 2, question 3 and 4. This is for Jamie to write down his answer of what he thinks Rory. Wait, yes? I don't know anymore. Here we go. Here's the question. When searching for fine dining on the road, blank is my bandmate's top pick. So Jamie, write down what you think Rory will say. And while he's doing that, Chris, you'll be guessing the next one. Sam, you'll be writing down. The question is, my bandmate likes playing in the stereo and all, but joining blank would be his dream come true. Let's think about those. So once again, Jamie and Rory, when searching for the fine dining on the road, blank is my bandmate's top pick. And Sam and Chris, my bandmate likes playing in the stereo and all, but joining blank would be his dream come true. Are we ready? Do I have thumbs up from the gallery? There we go. Cool. I hear scribbling frantically.
I don't know if this is a funny answer, but
All right.
Should we actually try and score a point? Is that
Let's
how the
find
game
out.
works?
All right. So, Rory, you have to guess this. When searching for fine dining on the road, blank is my bandmate's top pick. What would you say,
I'm going to say Taco Bell. It's a classic. When you're on the road, it's got to be T-Bell dog. Come on. Show me Taco Bell. Yeah!
Oh, man. Shit.
I'm gonna give it. That's a half point. That's a half point.
No, give us the full point. Jonathan can't even type 0.5. I mean, come on.
1/2.
Listen, you hedged your bets on that one. That's not on to me. All right, let's move on. Sam and Chris. My bandmate likes playing in the stereo and all, but joining blank would be his dream come true. Chris, what do you think Sam wrote?
I got to go Van Halen. I was going to say Warrant.
Chris, you're a monster on bass. You know that. I mean,
Yes.
they're still out there.
Well, and
You're so progressive, Sam. You're
in a roundabout way. Get it? Roundabout. Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Rory and Jamie are in the lead with a half of a point.
It's fixed. This is rigged.
Well, here's how you know the fix is actually is that the next round only has one question and not two. So I'm going to give you both the same question. All right.
Oh,
so we're going to both the same question.
All right.
All right. So we'll have Rory write down the answer, Jamie to guess, and we will have Chris write down the answer, Sam to guess. All right. So here is the final question. This is for all the marbles. You might think the stereo is dad rock, but my bandmate can still shred on his blank. I will award bonus points for rhyming, just for the record.
Wait a minute. I'm guessing what Rory's going to say about. I still don't know the rules.
Don't think about it too hard.
It's whose line is it anyway? The rules don't matter. Yeah, the rules are made up. But the points do matter, though. Mm-hmm. So, are we good? Here we go. So, one more time. You might think the stereo is dad rock, but my bandmate can still shred on his blank. And this is Jamie guessing what Rory's writing down, and this will be Sam guessing what Chris has written down. So, if I have thumbs ups from my writers, we can roll. Thumbs up. All right, let's do it. Jamie, to pad your lead out, you might think the stereo is dad rock, but my bandmate can still shred on his blank.
Jazz Blaster.
Rory?
Oh, I wish I had written that. Oh, this is not going to be funny. I put weed whacker. Sorry. I was trying to think of a dad thing.
I mean, these are all euphemisms for penises anyways. I think it's fine. You guys don't call yours a jazz blaster? Oh, wow. All right. All right. Now, to take the lead and the win.
Sorry, Mom.
It's time to reveal. She's seen a penis before, okay? She's your mother. She's seen a
Oh my
All right.
God.
All right.
Ooh.
It peaked about 40 years ago. Sorry. All right, Sam, time for you to guess. What did Chris write down? My bandmate likes playing in the stereo and all, but joining blank would be his dream. I'm sorry. You might think the stereo was dad rock. There it is. My bandmate can still shred on his blank.
Well, I mean, based on the penis theme and Chris, I'm going to say Chris wrote P-Bass.
Ooh.
Oh. Well,
I think the questions are give us way more credit than is due.
I didn't write them.
But wait, now I'm confused again. I thought I was supposed to answer what I thought he would be doing.
It doesn't matter. Just show us.
I put that.
We're on the same
actual answer, and you thought that was going to work. You can't give the actual answer.
I mean, I went the wrong way.
Let's do a lightning round. Do you have a marker?
Points. Oh,
damn it!
Oh no, points. Well,
that's about as successful as we get.
The first and hopefully only installment of How Well Do You Know Your Bandmate? Team Rory and Jamie win with 1/2 of 1 point. Congratulations, everybody!
I get to stay in the band,
And now-
y'all.
Wait for the segue. I hope we never play this game again for a long, long time. Play the song. Long time.
Parts of my life are the moments between gaining consciousness and when I remember who I am. But the truth is I'm lying here pretending I don't know you. Woke up an hour ago and slipped away awake with my eyes closed.
love this song. One of my favorites on the new record. I'm so glad that you guys chose to feature it today. I believe my first email to Adam a year and a half ago was like, this song fucking rules. So great job on this one. It reminds me a lot of your half of your state mates, Jimmy Eat World, has a very Jimmy Eat World kind of like super thick, crunchy guitar rock sound, right? How is it that you got a recording to sound this good when you're scattered across all these different states and different time zones and different internet connections?
2 words. Jamie Wolford. Take it away, Jamie.
Oh.
Enough said.
Wait.
Pen
Good. Drop the
Hang on, wait,
Sharpie.
I'm gonna take off the mic because it's connected, and I'll drop it in a second.
those
Give me a second. I'll
guitars-
drop the mic.
Those guitars do sound huge, and I don't
Yeah.
get to go into the lab, so I don't even know. So Jamie, are there tricks of the trade?
Yeah,
for,
I
for
have
the
a-
gearheads that you could
It's
share.
all just done on Fiverr. I just outsource everything to like a team in like Saskatchewan. You know, no, I
Outsource.
mean, yeah, without getting overly technical, I. Honestly, one of the main things that you can do to make your guitar sound good is to try to play it really good. I know that sounds kind of dickish or whatever, but you'd be surprised. And then in this particular song, I did a little trick where I record our main sound, main rock sound, and then I make a sound which I call kind of like a sludge sound, which is similar to the main sound, but it's actually quite nasty sounding and sludgy and distorted. And I sort of mix that in underneath. So you don't necessarily hear it as being 4 guitar parts, but it is 4 guitar parts, 2 of which sound sort of kind of clean and rock and roll. And then the other 2 sound like World War III. So, yeah.
Yeah, we should point out too that this is not actually the first time that a lot of people have heard part of this song, because the teaser that you posted when you first announced the Kickstarter features the end of this song. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's the one where it's got the crazy Sam fill where Sam, his internet connection got screwed up and he just and we had to figure out how to play on top of it. He's like, I want that in there. That stays.
It worked. It works. All right, let's go to some audience questions. I have one. This is from Travis B. I have to assume it's Travis Barker. I'm just going to go on a limb and say it's Travis Barker. He wants to know, this is the question probably for the people who wrote the song, Rory and Jamie. Are we ever going to hear a non-demo, re-recorded version of We Are Young?
Oh, I would love to do that. I mean, anyone who's listened to the podcast knows that song in particular had kind of a little bit of a poignant story behind it, and I would love a chance to get to revisit it and do it right. Yeah.
Hang on.
What are you
Let's
doing
start right
after
now.
this, Jamie? Yeah, let's do it.
How much time's everyone got? Yeah.
I would love to do that.
That kind of leads to a kind of an additional follow-up question for me, is that I'm sure there were other songs that were kicking around between the two of you in the first iteration of the band. When you were approaching writing for this album, was it kind of like, we're not purposely going to go back and grab this stuff, or did you just not think about it?
It was never on the table and we had so many songs already, like the need to try and like bring out some gems from the past. It never really.
Are you talking about like
occurred to
actually
me.
re-recording like older songs that we've already released, or just ones that we wrote that we never got around to?
Yeah,
So I don't know. The latter,
ideas
I don't know if
kicking
we had a
around.
lot of.
Kind of like, like how Rivers Cuomo, for example.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I think we're having some internet questions. Sorry. But yeah, as I was saying, like Rivers Cuomo, for example, will frequently go back into his catalog that things that aren't released and pull these things and modify them for like a modern audience.
Yeah. I mean, look, I think Rory would probably agree. There's like a certain amount of songwriting can kind of sometimes be like a pressure valve release, and you end up having these things. Then you like sit down and you like for example, anytime I pick up like a new guitar, I'm not like from the store, but like meaning like I pick up some instrument somewhere. If I'm at a someone's house or something like that, almost certainly just because of the lack of familiarity with the instrument, I will just noodle on something that I haven't before, and I'll come up with like a riff or something. I'll be like, oh, that's kind of cool. And if I happen to remember it when I get back to like my guitar, it can sometimes lead to an actual song. These things pile up really fast where you end up with a lot of like little parts. And then when you go to sit down and kind of like try to project out of this bin of ideas something into reality. A lot of good can come from that. But then there are definitely songs I've written, like I probably have, I don't know, I would say 60 songs in my head that I've never committed to any sort of recording device, but I just have them here. If I were to like bump my head too hard, they would like disappear, But like I have almost complete songs just sitting up there that I haven't done anything with, and I just haven't had the inspiration or the intuition to kind of see that they could become something better than just sitting there. I tend to let just like the universe solve that problem for me. If there's something I need to do, I need a song. Whatever the right song is at the right time will just sort of happen. And I tend to let that muse lead the way and be okay with it. Thinking that I'm in the driver's seat the whole time can be really detrimental to progress. If you just kind of let things happen, let it go where it does, even if it's unexpected, oftentimes the song will just tell you what it wants to be, and you just have to learn how to listen to it.
It's really interesting to me too that Jamie says that, because those like songs that pile up. Just to call it out really quickly, that was one of my favorite things about doing the podcast, is I was able to use tons of little pieces that I had written over years and years as the soundtrack for the podcast. So any of the music that you hear behind me talking, it's going to be something that I made a voice memo of like 3 years ago, and now I'm like being able to take it back up. So that was like a super rewarding part of making the podcast that I wasn't necessarily counting on.
Yeah, that's cool, because it wouldn't become like a full-fledged song, like it didn't have all the arms and legs that it needed to do that, but to sit under you talking, like it had everything it needed, So, and by the way, I would love to see, we've talked about this before, I'd love to see those songs actually come out like on a soundtrack for Kings of No Hope or something like that. I thought some of the stuff in there was really great.
There we go. Deluxe edition reissue 2024. Let's do it. Let's keep moving here before my computer explodes, as I think it's starting to smoke here. We have another new song we want to debut for everyone. This is another one of the coolest ones on the record. I like it a lot. This song is called My Ready Arms.
10 hearts of blood. You and I both know there's no turning back, nowhere to go. Heart so heavy, long. Wait, that's not what you said yesterday. Now I can't sleep. My ready arms can't seem to reach. A little older, yeah, but still afraid. Well, don't be scared. The more you cry, the more we share this heart.
I feel like it's 2001 and I'm at the Fireside Bowl and I'm trying my best to not poop in that bathroom, and it just sounds so good watching you play that song on the shittiest possible PA with all the lights on. That's what that song feels like to me.
Yeah, I'm glad you're not pooping in that bathroom either, because I'm likely changing into my show clothes in there.
Yeah.
If you've seen Train Spotting, you've seen a bathroom half as bad as the Fireside Bowl.
We are not to get too off track, but I once saw Patty from Dillinger 4 do a headstand in the toilet mid Dillinger 4 set, and I have a photo to prove it, and I'm scarred for life. So with that said, we'll keep moving.
Salt to the earth, that guy.
The cool thing about I think 13 is that there's really a lot of different kind of sides and facets of the stereo throughout the record. This is kind of one of the most straightforward, real, just like pedal to the metal rockers on the record. The notes that were written for me says it sounds more aggro-punk Descendant style, which is like kind of true. It still feels like a stereo song, right? But this has a lot of like connectivity to things that you are passionate about from your past that you've now gotten on to work with these people. What's that like to kind of have a song be kind of a direct descendant, no pun intended, from people that you've spent time working with?
I make no bones about it. Like Stephen Edgerton from Descendants is like probably my top 3 guitar player hero guys, and I've in the last like 10 or 12 years, whatever, sort of become friends with him, and I pick his brain all the time about things. He picks my brain all the time about things, and we're sort of like phone pen pals, right? He I showed this to him. I was like, dude, I'm totally copying you right now. Like, let me know if I'm getting it right. And he was like, oh yeah, you got it. But he is, I don't understand. He to me is like, like we joked about the aliens in Phoenix. There's an alien on this planet and it's Stefan Egerton, and how he plays the guitar is out of this world. I don't understand how they can play so exacting and fast and still have it sound the way that it sounds. But I've been chasing what he's done for years. It's amazing. The gift that band has given us is, come on.
I love hearing Jamie exercise that part of his songwriting too, because like not every song that comes out of Jamie has that Descendants piece to it. But I think, some of the tracks on 300 did, and bringing that back into the fold really was heartwarming for me on 13.
What's interesting to me is you working on this record for so long in your home studio, but yet it doesn't seem like there's any like special guests on the record, yet you all have a lot of connections with other musicians. Did you ever want to reach out to, say, Stefan Egerton or somebody else to contribute a part to the record that wasn't in the band?
Yeah, Stefan actually sings on "Do You Don't You." Stefan,
Okay.
Stefan sings. Bill McShane from Ultimate Fake Book sings.
Stella from Cruiserweight.
Stella from Cruiserweight's on there.
Okay, cool.
My friend Olivia.
We've got a few different people. Both my daughters actually sing on the record in one way or another. Zoe actually sings on a song called Heather, and has this like cool harmony part in there. And then if you listen closely to the end of Perils, there's this really funny sound effect that happens at the end of the song, and that's my daughter Annika. So
okay.
Whoa. Your dog sings on it too.
Oh, and Muchka is on the record as well. So,
So wait a minute.
Come on.
So I'm after your dog? It's fucked up.
I'll tell you, man. the royalties for this song is really difficult to split up. So, how many points do you give the dog? Yeah. All right, let's keep it moving. I can't believe we got him. I had my producer working all week to get this guy locked down, and amazingly, we got him to agree to be a guest on the pod. Here we go. Straight from hell himself, or itself. There we go. Please welcome, everyone, put your hands together for Beelzebub, Satan.
Hey fellas, first time caller, long time fan. In fact, I was massive fan of Animal Chin and the Impossibles back in the day. So to be here on your podcast, well, this is just so exciting, I tell you. Anytime I hear people down here say they don't like the stereo or that 300 was the only good record, I say, silence! And then I usually send their souls to the infinity furnace we got here, which is, well, it's just really brutal, I tell you. Anywho, part of the reason I'm calling is that, well, to be honest, I was actually set to audition for the band back in '99, but Wolford never called me back. I didn't want to take it so personally at first, but it really bothered me, and well, I guess I should probably come clean about something. You know all that bad luck and turmoil you guys experienced? Yeah, kind of my bad on that one. I mean, who else could have knocked out the Northeast Power Grid in 2003 just to F with your band? The good news, I've attained a lot of personal growth since then. Really the best way to get over the sting of not being able to realize my full potential as a member of the stereo is to actually write and record a song for the stereo. That's right, I snuck my way into the studio late at night to lay down some tracks, and I'm positive you won't mind the last minute contribution. Roll the tape. Yes, I mean, come on, dudes, you know that slays. Like, that rock's at least 3 times harder than Grand Funk Railroad, come on. Anyway, thanks for having me on the show, really love the podcast, fellas, and congrats on the new album. Oh, and, see you soon, Wolford.
Well, I'm not quite sure how to respond to that. That song was not on the advance I got for the record. I guess we have to make room for another song. What's going on here, guys? What do we think about Satan's contribution here?
How did this even happen?
Who the hell knew?
I am pleased that my sacrifice resulted in the correct metal.
What's the incorrect metal? Striper.
By the way, what has he got against Grand Funk Railroad?
Exactly.
No, he's saying Grand Funk Railroad is like the peak of like rock devil music, right?
Exactly.
Oh, okay.
Exactly.
Oh,
Yeah.
all right.
Yeah, and you are an American band, as far as I know. So that's true. So you're coming to your town. You're gonna party down. Shelter in the Storm.
God.
That song sounded incredibly massive, and you can find that on the new stereo album 13, which comes out. Guess what? May 13th, Friday the 13th. Very unlucky of them. Well, watch Spotify get bought up by Elon Musk before then, and then disclose it or something like that. So as we are starting to wind down here, I did want to kind of talk about that song a little bit more. Where did the idea to have a song that was that brutally heavy come from? You're pointing at Chris on my screen. I don't know who's
I'm pointing to hell.
Well, Pittsburgh, to some, Pittsburgh is hell. Just for the record.
Easy, Cleveland. Go easy, Cleveland.
I'm from Illinois originally. I don't have any loyalty to Cleveland. Whatever. It's fine.
You're still there.
That's true.
I'm sorry.
Fair enough.
So that was one of mine that I brought to the table before me and Jamie had really been working together too much. And, the whole idea of bringing that sort of influence into the stereo, I found really fascinating, particularly like now having Sam in the band, because Sam mentioned earlier, not really coming from ska and punk. I know a big part of his background was metal, and bringing the metal into this band. So it was just a chance to really be able to blow out the end of that song in a huge, big way and try and make the chorus just as massive as it could possibly be.
Sam, for you, who are some metal drummers that you find yourself trying to emulate or look up to?
Well, I mean, for me, it just goes back to like heavy playing, period. So really my influences would be more like along the lines of Bonham and Matt Cameron, those kind of guys that are playing like with Soundgarden, playing harder music. But my influences are kind of all over the place. I just, if it's hard to play physically and I can feel like I'm really having to work and maybe not screw up so much, I feel like I'm doing my job. I just try to get everyone else's butts moving. I feel like that's my job. Okay. And so that's, I guess that's kind of metal to me, is just that energy.
You're like half Danny Carey, half Dave Grohl, basically, is what we're going for.
Those guys are, absolutely.
And Chris, what about you? As someone who's not, rooted in the metal as much as Sam is, but you're kind of his rhythm section partner, what did you have to do to kind of tap into something that was heavier on this?
Nothing. Like he's so easy to play with, and I love playing the heavier stuff. So, piece of cake, and like literally, I can be half asleep over there playing. And it's amazing.
You usually are.
It's amazing with Sam.
Chris's fingers are just like, yeah.
But I'm still napping. No, it's cool. Great. It's great. I whatever Jamie said about him, I agree. He's like the best drummer I've ever played with. So
very cool.
Most enjoyable at all times.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, I know we have to get out of here. I've kept you guys for far too long, and everyone has to get to their plans for the evening. But I do have a couple more questions from the audience I'd like to ask. The first one that is very near and dear to me is this is from Chris T. Seeing as y'all have strong ska roots, would you ever consider pulling a Jeff Rosenstock and converting one of your albums or a greatest hits into ska form? Now, for those who don't know, Jeff Rosenstock, noted fan of the stereo, recently re-recorded his album No Dream and had it released last April 20th of all days. Call it Ska Dream. And honestly, it's just as good, if not better, than the actual album. So what do you think?
That record is amazing. If I thought that we could do as good of a job as Jeff did, I would push really hard for that. But I don't know, Jamie, are you up for it? You want to do this record one more time?
Yeah, I got a free 7 years,
Okay, and one more question. This has been coming in from everyone the entire time, as well as ahead of time. Is shows, touring? What are the plans? When, if you can see right here, I'm wearing a Fest 17 T-shirt. The last time the Stereo played in public, and I wasn't even there, but your name's on the back. Nice. So tell me, when are there going to be more Stereo shows? Where, when, how can I go? I have a basement. It's got high ceilings. Let's do this. Come to Cleveland. It's easy.
I like that idea.
That sounds like such a great setup for us to plug shows that are coming up, but we don't have any shows coming up. I would say to someone asking that question, we are ready. We've got the music. We want to do it. It's just a matter of logistics. And I want to hang out with these three guys and have a fantastic time like we always do when we get together. We've just got to find the right show to make it happen.
Okay, and also making sure that your rider gets fulfilled of nothing but green M&Ms, right? We're going back to the Van Halen thing. So,
sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So my last question is for Jamie. Do you remember, I'm going to be the punishing fan, do you remember when you opened for Super Drag in Champaign-Urbana in December 2000, that you made up a song called Booty in the Face?
Oh my Lord!
Booty in the face.
What?
I've had this
season 2 of the podcast is going to be all about this.
I drove to see that show. I drove 3.5 hours to see that show because Super Drag's amazing too. And you made up a song called Booty in the Face. It was like a funk song. It's like Booty in the Face. Get your booty in the face. Do you have any recollection of this? It's been
my God.
for 22 years.
No, I'm sorry. Should I try to remember it now? I just
Yes.
Would you please? Would you please?
I don't know. Okay, so I don't recall this particular piece, but I can tell you that like very often, like if there was a moment on stage where like let's say a cable failed and there's like some sort of delay, the technical problem or something like that, I am very, it's not outside the realm of possibility that in the spur of the moment, I will just attack the senses of the audience with ridiculousness. So I maybe
sensibilities. Yeah, it's true.
Yeah. So I probably did that to harm the ear holes of our fans, just as a way to kind of minimize silence on stage. I don't know. Maybe a greatest hits record is on the way with Booty in the Face as
Perhaps
track
great
2.
shits, right? There we go. So
yeah. Great.
I'm full of them today. And I'm going to put you on the spot now. Speaking of blowing away our senses and sensibilities, I see a rack of guitars behind you. Do you have any interest in performing live for the huddled masses yearning to be free?
Time marches over Holy Ghost, locked in our hearts a mellow toast to a golden age of rose. We can't go on. Songs penned in earnest long ago found that favor, say hello to the kings of no hope, called the Stereo. We're on a sinking ship of sound, somehow landed underground. Another box to kick around the slow rebound. Youth reaching out for dummy robes. Suits keep telling lies and selling jokes. Check the angle of the slope. Stand up, fall down, you don't know how. Kids, listen up, but don't look down. There's a ceiling, but no ground. All hail the kings of no hope. Down the stairs we roll, and on a sinking ship of sound, somehow landed underground. The box of rock that sticks around but can't be found. Can't be found.
hail the kings of no hope. We're the stereo. We're on a sinking ship of sound, somehow landed underground. Truth we dare not seek, yet still we sought and found. There's no hope.
Wonderful. Thank you
little
so
bit of-
much, Jamie. That was delightful. Yeah, round of applause. Give it up.
Make a great theme song for a podcast.
Booty in the face. Perfect. Nail it. Got it. That's, I'm gonna waive my publishing rights on that one. So before we get out of here, I'd like everyone to kind of give any Jerry Springer-esque final thoughts. We'll start on my screen at the very bottom here with Sam. Sam, do you have any final thoughts for the audience today or for your bandmates?
Well, love this whole thing. I've never done something quite like this before. It was exciting, kept me on my toes. I said toes very much like a Minnesotan there. I'm just noticing.
Oh, yeah.
Scott, thanks for doing this for us. I hope to see everybody hopefully soon for a One Crazy Nights tour. We haven't done that in a while. So I love you guys. You know that, and I love you very much, and can't wait to see y'all in person.
Chris, how about you?
Everything he just said, but buy our record, get our record. It's coming. We can't wait. Honestly, we can't wait to show this to people and have people really enjoy it.
Yeah.
Like, it's going to be huge.
All right, Jamie, do you have any final words?
I just want to give a shout out to our families. They are so supportive and encouraging of what we do, and we love our families. We love our wives and our children, and without you guys, like, seriously, like, we might not even be alive. So thank you so much for being so amazing, and you guys are the reason that that we smile every day. Thank you.
All right, and Rory, bring us home.
I'll just say thank you to the fans. This has been an incredible experience. We talked about when we were first starting about doing the crowdfunding, not really having a sense of like how it was going to go and like, is anyone going to care? There's been such a sense of connection and community that we've found through this process that I personally, it's just been so incredible. And it's been such a joy to be able to interact with folks and talk about the good old days, and then also talk about the new music coming and have folks excited about that. So just thank you to everyone who listened to the podcast. Thank you to everyone who's going to listen to the record when it comes out on May 13th. Thank you.
I think that really kind of sums it up. As someone who's been a fan since day one for the past 23 years, I can say with confidence, and by the way, I'm not being paid to do this. This is out of my own good heart. I love doing this for real. This 13 is the best stereo record. Like, no bullshit. As someone who's had the entire catalog in my brain for the past 2 decades, this is the best stereo record. It sounds amazing. The lyrics are incredible. The hooks they're everywhere. If you like anything ever with any of these 4 people that have ever done before, this is by far the pinnacle of what they've worked on. So go to thestereorock.com, pre-order that motherfucker. Can I swear? I don't know if I can swear. I don't know.
Yes,
Sorry about that.
yes,
Pre-order that
do.
mother effer. Pre-save it on Spotify. Order it on Bandcamp. Support your local musicians, your independent musicians. This record rules. It was in my top of 2021, even though it wasn't out yet. It'll certainly be in my top of 2022. Thank you all for having me kind of ham-fist my way through this whole thing. And last but not least, it's important to recognize that the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is in Cleveland. All right. And you become eligible for induction after 25 years from your first recorded work. So 2024, the Stereo are doing their secret show in my basement before the Rock Hall induction. Is that, can we agree to this? Shake? All right. Everyone shaking?
We have a I nearly got kicked out of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So we're probably disqualified automatically.
What were you trying to touch?
The Beach Boys drum set. I don't know if I ever told this story. Do we have time for a quick story about? Okay,
let's go encore. One more story. One more story.
We go to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. We're on tour, and we go in and and we're like, hey, we heard that you bands get in free, and I can't remember if they actually. I think they did let us in free. They're like,
they still do.
Yeah, they're like, let me see your lanyard. Let me see your. Where's the drummers? Let me see his calloused hands or something like that. And then the curator of the museum, I guess, or the manager or whoever was there was like, you guys a band? And we're like, yeah, we're the Stereo. It's like, yeah, come on in. We actually have a few spots at the museum right now that are closed for renovation, but I'll take you in and you guys can see some stuff that nobody else gets to see right now. We're like, okay, great. That sounds awesome. So he's walking us around and we walk behind this big curtain and there's all of this backline, but just kind of scattered about. It's like Pete Townshend's high watt amps and this piano and microphones from whatever, right? And then sitting right in front of me is the Beach Boys' drum set from Pet Sounds, the drum set they used on Pet Sounds. And he's like, and here's the drum set he's telling us about it. Here's the drum set they use from Pet Sounds. And I've now forgotten that I'm in a museum. I just think I'm looking at a drum kit. So I go I take my finger and I go whap on the rack tom because I wanted to see if it was in tune. And the guy looked at me like I had just picked up an Egyptian vase and started juggling. And he's like, you are not allowed to touch anything in the, and I was like, oh my God, it just clicked. And I was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. And I just kept saying sorry. And he's like, yeah, okay, well, guys, enjoy the rest of the museum or whatever. We immediately got hustled out of there. And so, if that guy's still working, I don't think we're getting in. So.
Well, let's see if we can get something smooth over before 2024. We'll get you in there no matter what. I swear. You can come tour it. Again, thank you to Rory, Jamie, Chris, and Sam. Thank you to everyone for watching today and spending your Sunday with us. We appreciate it. Once again, thestereorock.com. Go pre-order or pre-save 13. It's out everywhere May 13th. If you didn't kickstart it, you screwed up, but there'll be more chances to get the record. Right, guys?
Yes.
All right. Cool. All right. Everyone on the count of three. We're gonna do the big frozen wave. Hey, all right. We'll say goodbye. Okay. Here we go. 1, 2, 3.